In this NFL DFS video, we'll review key GPP tournament strategies that will maximize your chances of taking home that large cash prize. We'll do this as we analyze the 2023 Week 1 DraftKings main slate as we construct a GPP lineup with a special guest. And it's all coming up next. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Lee with the Fantasy Football Consultants. And today I am joined by Ryan Poole, who has been a contributor at RotoWire since 2020, covering a variety of sports, including the NFL and PGA. He has been a DFS product specialist since August of 2022. Ryan also has extensive experience playing Dynasty Fantasy Football and has won multiple FFPC main event leagues. He can be followed on Twitter at Ryan Poole. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Eric. It's good to be with you.
Yeah, so one of the things we focus in on this channel is, yes, we give you guys picks. For example, we're going to be taking a look at the Week 1 main slate for 2023 on DraftKings. We're going to give you our picks, but we also, like that Bible parable, we don't want to just give you the fish. We want to teach you how to fish so you can develop your own best lineups given all of the information that is made available to you. So one of the first questions that I have, Ryan, they need to make a decision of whether they play cash games or GPP. What's the biggest thing they need to be focused on if they choose to pick a GPP tournament as opposed to cash?
Well, I think the main thing is if you're doing a GPP, it all comes down to stacking. But if you're using an optimizer, you can't just go in, select, hey, create one lineup and expect an optimizer to give you the millionaire maker winning lineup. You have to go in, change things up, look at the different customizations you can make, and tailor it to be something that's your own.
All right. Well, sounds good. Well, let's go ahead and do that. You and I are going to collaborate to prepare a Week 1 main slate on DraftKings GPP lineup. All right, we're on RotoWire's NFL lineup optimizer. Ryan, tell them a little bit about what they're seeing on the screen.
Yeah, so this is the homepage of our optimizer, Eric. You can see here, this is where we build lineups after we've made some customizations. You can see for the Week 1 slate, we've got the 13 games that are a part of the slates. And then if we go down here, we can see the player pool. Right now we're showing all players, but we can also sort by positions as well as each player's value, which takes into account their salary.
Yes, got it. So your system does some type of projection, and they divide that by salary to determine value. Right. We each are going to pick a player to be in our lineup. My one big take for the preseason is pick on the Arizona Cardinals. Well, I think is going to be the worst team in the NFL, but I'm not going to pick on them. The guy, your optimizer loves Antonio Gibson. I'm going to pick Brian Johnson, save $100 off him at $5,100. I'll watch the news. I know they have a new offensive coordinator in Eric Bieniemy, but the way they were doing it last year is Brian Robinson was the first and second down back and the goal line back who got most of the carries. Antonio Gibson was getting the pass receptions. I expect Washington at home against the worst team in the NFL, Arizona, to be ahead in this game. So I am going to get Brian Robinson in our lineup. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I don't know if Arizona is going to be, favored to win almost any games this season. It's going to be a mess. And as a result, like opposing running backs from the Cardinals are probably going to be a good way to go in DFS. Those teams are going to be favored a lot. They're going to be ahead a lot. They're going to be looking to eat clock. And one thing we saw from Ron Rivera last year is that he loves Brian Robinson. I'd argue that Gibson's probably the more talented back between of the two. He can do more. He can do more, like you said, on passing downs, but Robinson's going to get a lot of carries. He's going to get a lot of goal line work. And he's definitely somebody at, 5,100 for week 1. You could plug in your lineup and you could get 20 points out of him.
Yeah, and I get DraftKings is a full PPR, so I know that Gibson, if he catches passes, it'll be even more valuable. But so tell me how your optimizer works. I see that we can lock him in, and I also see a like. What's the difference?
Yeah, good question, Eric. So on our optimizer, if there's somebody that you think they're going to be better than the projection we have them for, you can like him. That's going to bump him up 10%. So you can see that he moved up in our, we've got it sorted by value, and he moved up to the 5th highest value among running backs.
Can you like a guy more than once?
I know you can just like him the one time. But you can also manually change projections. So if you wanted to, bump Brian Robinson up to 15.
No. We won't.
And then if you just want to have Robinson show up in every one of your lineups, that's where you can just lock him in.
Let's for this pass, let's lock in Brian Robinson. Now, I want to just do a little quick caveat before we move on, because you get to lock in a player or like a player. Watch Javonte Williams, please, everybody, because at 5,100, same price as Brian Robinson, Samaje Perine, who I see your RotoWire projections really loves, is also at home, is also placing a very bad team in the Las Vegas Raiders. So if Williams is out, then I love Perine this week.
Yeah, I like that too. And even if Javonte is active and playing week 1, it's very likely they ease him into the season, making Perine probably a lot more valuable early on in the year, especially for DFS.
All right, so we have one player in our GPP lineup. Might I add, I saved us a lot of money there, right? So you get a shot. Who are you gonna lock in our lineup?
Well, I'm gonna save us some money as well, and we can get into some more expensive guys. I'm gonna look at tight ends, and I had Juwan Johnson from the Saints on my radar. Watched him in the preseason the other night. He caught both of his targets for 29 yards. He's reportedly had a really good camp. And Johnson was actually sneaky good last year. Over his last 10 games, he was double-digit DraftKings points in over half of those games. He had 2 20-point games, and he's just going to keep getting better. We've seen Derek Carr want to target his tight ends in the past with Darren Waller, even, when Waller was out, Foster Moreau. So I think Juwan Johnson week 1 is, somebody you could use to save some salary.
Wow. Okay. I like it. And I love that he's facing the Tennessee Titans secondary, who's not very good.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So those are the guys. So you're going to like him, or are you going to lock him
in? For the sake of this, we'll lock him in.
Okay.
And that's going to have him come up in every one of the lineups we do. And we can always go back and change it later.
Sure. So tell me your optimizer next to that lock has EXC. Tell us a little bit about what that's all about.
Yep. So that's just going to exclude a player. So if there's somebody on this list that we just really don't like, we don't agree with their projection, or he's just somebody we want to fade that week, we can go ahead and just X him out.
Okay.
I'll pick on Isaiah Likely here from the Ravens, because as long as Andrews is on the field, Likely's probably, got a limited ceiling. So that's just gonna get rid of him.
He's likely not to do well.
Yeah.
All right, I got one. Go to running back. And I promise you I'm not too bitter. Since he was my first overall pick last year, was Jonathan Taylor.
Earned a lot of guys. Yeah.
Yes. But it's not just that. I mean, he says he's hurt. His team says he's hurt. Well, now he's saying maybe he's not hurt. One thing's hurt is his feelings. I don't want any part of him, even if he turns out to a week before the season to say he's playing. So can we put a little exclusion next to him? I don't want to see him in our.
We'll get rid of JT there. It's it's an interesting offense with the Colts this year as well. With rookie Anthony Richardson, might be better to just wait on JT until we see what they look like.
All right, so we've got our two guys, and I do want, once we see the lineup, we're gonna go back and take a look at the other positions, and we might want to change some things. So let's tell us the next step to now that we've locked in a couple of players.
Yeah, so this is where we're just going to go into our customizations tab and see all the different things that we can adjust on our own. We have some default customizations just built in, making sure that, for example, players without a projection don't show up in optimized lineup for any reasons. One of the things I really like, and is a good thing for people to think about, is to make sure everybody you have with a late start is in your flex spot. Don't put somebody with a noon game in your flex spot, because you never know what might happen later on. You may need to make an adjustment. There may be an injury in a later game, and that just gives you, more flexibility. So we always put somebody with the latest start in the flex spot.
Absolutely, makes sense.
Yep. And then down here is where we can go make some of our own customizations. And when it comes to GPPs, the foundation of any lineup is going to be how you stack your lineup. So here we can go. Yeah, go ahead.
Something we talked a lot about in this channel, stacking. That's idea of putting two players who are highly correlated together, where if one player goes off, the other player is more likely to go off. And in GPP, you want that high ceiling. You say, well, what if that other player doesn't go off? Well, you probably weren't going to win any big money anyway. No. So, but if he does go off, maximize your chances with other people in the lineup that correlate. So, so talk to me about, it's showing me the teams, and I can pick between certain teams to stack.
Yeah, so these are all of the 26 teams that are on the week one main slate here, and we just kind of default it to only include the top 6 highest scoring teams. So all these numbers you see next to each team is their implied point total for week one, sorted in order. And if you want to include everybody, you can.
And I don't. I want to keep it to the high scoring. This is only stacking. It doesn't mean that if there's a player in a lineup we're not stacking. And I think an important note is that the Chargers are playing Miami, a game that we definitely would love to stack. The fact that we didn't click Miami is okay, though, if we're going both sides.
Correct. Yeah. So even if you don't have Miami selected and you do a bring back with Miami, it's going to give you a Dolphin.
So let's talk about our primary stack. How do you like to do a primary stack?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely different ways you can do it. The great thing about DFS GPPs is there's no one size fits all. There's definitely prefer ways I like to build my lineups. I prefer to do a running back, or excuse me, I prefer to do a quarterback with 2 pass catchers. So I'm going to set it up to do 1 quarterback, 1 wide receiver, and a wide receiver or a tight end. And then over here is where we can stack a player from the opposing team. And so I'll just do a wide receiver here. And then when we go to, create lineups, it's going to give us back stacks that fit this criteria exactly.
All right, so we're all in on this. 4 players on one game, where and I think the minimum stacking would be 2, right? A quarterback, usually, and one of his pass catchers. I like to always run it back, though, with someone on the other team, but you're double stacking on one team with a run back. I really like having that first stack. You can even go with a second stack where you pick 2 pass catching options on either team. A little hard to do that when we double stacked and ran one back, or even a running back in a defense. But I say, Ryan, should we just leave it at this point here?
Yeah, we can just leave it there. You can see we have the option that says add another stack, but for the sake of this video, we can just leave it at the 1, and
Okay.
we'll save our changes. So now we can go back to the home page of the optimizer, and we can go ahead and create some
Well,
lineups.
before you do that, there's a couple little quirks I have. I just detest spending a lot of money on a defense.
Okay.
So, can we go to defense? Let's exclude the first 3 defenses in salary.
Okay.
So Baltimore,
Sure.
Vikings, Niners. Defense is so volatile. I hate to spend a lot of money on a defense.
Yeah, and I'll just add one more point to that. Defense is definitely like just the hardest position to project for DFS purposes. There's just a lot of randomness with randomness to how they score points, and you can get some fluky fumble recovery touchdowns and things like that. So I generally try to find a defense that I think is going to be really low owned.
I think that's a biggie. Low priced and low owned is. And speaking of the defenses, though, I do have one that's close to my heart. And it's the Washington Commanders.
Okay.
We won't lock them, but let's give them a like.
Sure.
I'm gonna pretend they were a YouTube video I like. Give you a like, just like I hope you guys are liking this video, which will bump them up. They're facing Arizona at home, and we have Brian Robinson in our lineup, so that's kind of potentially be a suck. So all right, let's run this. I'm excited to see what the optimizer will give us in lineups.
Let's just let's do 5 lineups and see what we get back here. And
very
sure enough,
interesting.
Our second lineup does have the Commanders defense with Brian Robinson there.
Well, let's start with the very first lineup.
Sure.
I'm noticing something, Ryan. So we want to maximize our ceiling, of course. And I see the optimizer has given us both Washington running backs. And I get it. Arizona sucks, but generally, if one running back is going to have a really big day, and we do need that one running back to have a big day in GPP, the other running back probably won't have a big day. So
that's a good point, Eric. Like, and this kind of goes back to where the person using the optimizer has to use some of their know-how and make some adjustments on their own. Obviously, we've got Gibson and Robinson both projected for good games, but there would be some pretty strong negative correlation to using both of them. So since we locked Brian Robinson in, it probably just makes a lot of sense for us to exclude Antonio Gibson. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that.
Sounds good. I appreciate that you said we locked him. So you taking ownership of, I like that. So not all on me when Robinson is terrible and Gibson gets 3 TDs.
So we'll try building 5 lineups again, and we'll see if we get something that makes a little bit more sense to us. So looking at this first lineup here, we can see that we do get Robinson with the Commanders defense.
Yes. And so we're stacking that Cincinnati Cleveland game, it looks like. So we got Joe Burrow to some guy named Jamar Chase, not bad, and Tyler Boyd, and running that back with Elijah Moore. I like that. If this game is a shootout, you would think that we're going to score a lot of points. We're assuming Joe Burrow is going to be 100% healthy. Obviously, if he is not healthy, we would exclude Burrow from the beginning.
We're recording this a few weeks ahead of time, and so things are still going to change. Burrow week 1 probably is not going to be somebody you're gonna want to use. He may not play. I don't think he's gonna play week 1. But we definitely have some other stacks here that we can look at. The key thing is seeing that it is working properly. We did get the stack that we wanted, and then you can see Robinson and Johnson are highlighted because we locked them into every lineup.
The second one stacks the Philadelphia New England game. The New England team with Dalvin Cook now just immediately signed. And same thing with 3. What do you think about that as a game to stack?
It probably wouldn't be, like my preferred one to do. But I mean, I think there's definitely some sense to it. Hurts and AJ Brown had some huge games together last year. So you could just do, Hurts and AJ Brown, without Quez Watkins. I don't know if in this situation, having both of them makes a ton of sense, but I'm also just not excited about the New England passing game at all. And I think Juju's ceiling is probably pretty limited. So that's probably one that I wouldn't immediately go to.
Yeah, I'm with you, and we probably would now maybe want to readjust that as a team, as a game that we wouldn't stack. Let's go back and take a look at the teams again that we considered potentially stacking. So what I would say my favorite is Miami and the Chargers. Can we agree with that? They're the highest.
Absolutely.
Scoring. And before you move on, I'd like to make a change.
Sure.
We saw it with one. Let's just single stack on the same team, but we still will do a comeback player.
A bring back. Yep. Sure. Back. Yep. Yeah, and maybe we'll like that more.
So Ryan, one thing that I'd like to do is take a look again at our player pool. I just want to test a couple of different lineups out. What's one way we can come up with a different lineup?
Well, we are kind of locked into the 2 players that we put into 100% of our lineups. So if we want to get a little more flexibility, we could unlock somebody.
Your guy or my guy?
we can defer to me, and we can just get rid of Juwan Johnson.
Okay.
And choose someone else, especially just because like at tight end, it's very easy to go with someone cheaper and have them still, catch a touchdown and have a solid game.
Yeah. So just looking at the value here, at only 2,800, Michael Mayer from the Las Vegas Raiders. What do you think about him?
Yeah, he was the 2nd round pick for the Raiders this year. And with Darren Waller gone, with Foster Moreau gone, they're going to have to throw to somebody. Garoppolo has been known to throw to his tight ends. So we could go ahead and try locking in Michael Mayer and maybe getting some lineups that we like a little bit better than what we had. And we'll create some new lineups here and see what we get.
All right. Okay. Interesting. So this one has that major stack. Uses Quentin Johnston. Interesting. The rookie. Saves a lot of money on him. The second one uses Mike Williams, which I certainly like a little bit more.
Yeah, me too. I think if I'm going to stack Herbert, I'm with just one receiver. I think it has to be Allen or Williams.
Okay.
Which is what we get in lineups.
And I personally think Williams is a nice bargain on DraftKings.
He is, and that's why he's showing up here in 4 of the 5 is that $5,700 salary. So I don't know if one of these lineups sticks out to you more than others. I'm not really thrilled with Juju in a GPP. I feel like he's a little bit limited there.
Is that a comment on Juju or a comment on Mac Jones?
More so Mac Jones, but a little bit of both. I think I'm a little nervous about like even Brandon Ayuk week 1, just with the quarterback situation there.
They have so many weapons on that Niner team playing a tough Pittsburgh defense. You just wonder how big is the pie and how big is his portion of the pie.
Absolutely. So I think if I'm eyeing one, I think I'm probably eyeing this fourth lineup here, even though it doesn't have the Commanders defense. Kirk Cousins can certainly make turnovers. He can throw some picks. So I think I prefer this fourth lineup.
Tell
Do
me
you
about Drake London. You have
have
confidence in that Atlanta is not going to run the ball on every down?
Well, they listed Bijan Robinson as their third string running back, I believe, on their initial depth chart. So yeah, we'll see how that works out for him. But I do like London, extremely talented second year guy. The passing situation there isn't the most ideal, just with Desmond Ridder. We'll see if he takes a step forward, but it's another one of those situations where like he's the clear number one wide receiver. So there's definitely an opportunity for him to, put up 20 fantasy points even in week 1.
All right, I hear you. I like that lineup too, but I am going to go with lineup number 3.
Okay.
It's basically identical to yours, but
Yeah.
I get my Washington Commanders. I'm able to use that stack of Brian Robinson, a running back in his own defense. So, and what better team to have that running back defensive stack is at home against the worst team in the NFL, the Arizona Cardinals. I get that you don't love Juju, but Myers is gone. He's a Raider now. Some think he was a Raider when he threw the ball backwards 20 yards at the end of that game. I'm going to go with lineup number 3. I like our running backs, right? With Pirine and Robinson. I think I love stacking the Miami team with a quarterback and running back rather than the Chargers, because I think that the decision tree it's going to be Tua to Hill or Tua to Waddle. And I think it's more likely to Hill. So I love that pair. And then we run it back with a really economical Mike Williams, who absolutely has a ceiling. We add Justin Jefferson, most people think is the number 1 pick overall in the draft. So
yeah, and deservedly so, especially with the there was maybe a little bit of debate there with Jamar Chase, but with the Burrow injury, I think it just solidifies Jefferson number 1 overall. But yeah, you look at these lineups and there's just a ton of guys with really high ceilings, and that's what we're obviously looking for in GPPs.
And to take a little shot at your lineup, there's not much difference in our lineup, but a little shot is you've actually got your defense going against a wide receiver, Justin Jefferson against Tampa Bay. Does that bother you at all? Or
yeah, I don't. It's okay to do, but it's not something I would encourage people doing. Generally, I'm just going to pick a defense where I don't have any opposing players. But
Ryan, that was a lot of fun to build a week 1 lineup, even though who knows, with all the information that comes out, we'll want to change it a bunch, but it's a great starting point, I think, to a great GPP lineup. Anything else you want to let our viewers know?
Yeah, if you're interested in building some more lineups, you liked what you saw out of our optimizer, you can go on our website, rotowire.com. You can sign up for a free trial and play around with all of our customizations. And yeah, it was good to be on, Eric. Thank you.
Thanks for showing that to our folks and walking through week 1. If you would like to check out some of the other preseason content we have, check out one of the videos that are on the screen. We think you might enjoy. And until next time, take care, everybody.